I'm Moly. I am 28 years old, and until 2 days ago, I was just another slightly cynical London-based only child. My world revolved around a predictable rotation of my graphic design job, my tiny flat, and trying to convince my father, David, 58, to stop bringing his service pistol everywhere. He spent 20 years in the army, and that habit of always carrying is just etched into him, for better or worse. My mother, Grace, 55, is the sweet, persistent, unwavering counterweight to him, a typical housewife who just loves family. This year's Halloween was supposed to be a low-effort affair, but then the phone call came. It was my Aunt Zoe from Berlin begging Mom to bring us over. Zoe has 3 kids, the 2 little girls, Sarah and Anna, 10, who apparently had a powerful influence on their mother, and the teenage boy, Brian, 14. "Please, Grace," Zoe had said. "Sarah and Anna are insisting on celebrating with their London cousin." I had zero interest in flying to Berlin just to be a reluctant nanny on a holiday I barely celebrated. But Mom, bless her, knows my weaknesses. She leaned in conspiratorially and said, "If you come, I'll get you that new car you wanted next year." I accepted the offer immediately. We arrived 2 days before the 31st. Mid is strange but beautiful town. The architecture is old and solid, covered in ivy and history. But even in the autumn sunlight, there was a palpable feeling of being watched, a kind of historical echo in the air. I loved it, though. I was genuinely excited to explore this city, this perfect blend of old-world charm and modern thumping energy. The night of Halloween arrived, and the entire city seemed to erupt in a collective, insane party. I kept my promise, pulling on a pair of cat ears and wrangling the 3 cousins. Brian, already too cool for school, was dressed as a surprisingly realistic zombie, while Sarah was a fairy, and Anna, my nervous little shadow, was a black cat like me. We merged into the street. The noise was incredible. Imagine a mob of tens of thousands of people, all dressed in bizarre, gruesome, or hilarious costumes. The bass from the various outdoor music stages was so loud it vibrated in your chest, drowning out nearly everything else. That's when I saw it the first time. In a momentary lull in the crowd near a hot dog stand, a man in a cheap plastic politician mask stumbled. Another figure stood over him, tall, clad in a long black dress, their face covered by a simple, terrifying skull mask. They held a huge knife, glinting under the neon streetlights. I saw the movement, a swift, efficient, and downward slice. The politician masked man didn't scream. He just crumpled. And then the moment that will haunt me forever, the people around them laughed. They thought it was a stunt. Blood was already blooming across the victim's costume, but in the chaos, everyone just cheered, thinking it was excellent stagecraft. The skull mask figure, the killer, simply faded back into the sea of ghouls and superheroes. I stood there, frozen, thinking, did that just happen? I convinced myself it was fake, a prop, adrenaline, and costume paint. It had to be. I tried to focus on the kids. But in this crowd, they disappeared fast. "Brian, Sarah!" I yelled over the pounding music. Anna stayed glued to my side, her small hand sweaty in mine. That's when the slicing started to feel constant. It wasn't always visible, but every few blocks you'd see a sudden spill, a body hitting the ground, or someone clutching their neck before being swallowed by the dancing mob. The music was a relentless shield, the perfect sonic camouflage for every wet, horrifying sound. No one heard the screams because the bass line was too loud. Then the killer gazed on us. We were standing near the edge of a cluster of street performers, looking frantically for the missing kids. I looked up, and across the street, near a fountain, the skull-masked psychopath was staring right at us. He was close enough that I could see the light catch the deep, rusted red stains on his blade. He wasn't performing, he was hunting. His posture was rigid, predatory. I muttered by pulling her back. "Anna, walk away now. Don't run, just walk." We ducked down a slightly less crowded side street, looking for any sign of Brian's zombie makeup or Sarah's glowing wand. But instead, fate or pure, awful luck guided us toward a narrow, unlit alley. Just as we approached the entrance, the alley's dark mouth opened up and the killer stepped out. This time, there was no mistaking it. His long black dress was now flecked with dark, heavy splashes. The knife in his hand wasn't just stained, it was dripping fresh, crimson blood. It hit the wet cobblestones with a sickening, rhythmic plink. He was walking slowly, deliberately, not looking back. He must have just finished another kill inside. Anna froze, a silent, tiny gasp escaping her lips. I covered her mouth instantly, pushing us into the shadow of a decorative archway. He didn't see us. He walked past, disappearing into the main thoroughfare. The moment he was gone, I knew Brian and Sarah had to be close. Why else would he have been coming out of that specific alley? My heart felt like it was going to burst through my ribs, but the primal need to find the kids overrode the terror. I pulled Anna behind me and slipped into the alley. The first thing that hit me was the metallic, coppery smell. Then I saw her. Slumped against a brick wall was a young girl, maybe 19, dressed as an angel. Her wings were askew, and her face was streaked with tears and dirt. Her hands were pressed uselessly to her forearms. Her wrists were cut, deep, jagged gashes. She wasn't dead, but she was bleeding out fast. "Help me, please." "He did this to me," she whimpered, her voice tiny and raw. I dropped to my knees, frantic. I ripped the silk scarf from my neck, wrapping it around one wrist, but it was pointless. The blood soaked through immediately. The massive, throbbing music from the street festival was a cruel joke. People were walking past the alley entrance in droves, laughing, oblivious. They just thought it was a drunk person or part of the show. I couldn't lift her, couldn't stop the bleeding, and I couldn't scream loud enough to be heard over the revelry. It was then I heard a muffled cry further back in the darkness. "Moly?" It was Brian. I abandoned the poor girl. I had no choice. Anna and I sprinted towards the sound. We found Brian and Sarah huddled behind some refuse bins. Sarah's fairy mask had fallen off, and she was sobbing silently. Brian was surprisingly composed but white as a sheet, holding a bloody piece of clothing. "We saw him, Moly," Brian pointing back toward the main street entrance, not the one I had just come from. "The man in the skull mask. He was cleaning his knife on this." I didn't waste another second. I grabbed a cousin in each arm and dragged Anna with me. We ran until the music faded slightly, weaving through the side streets, the taste of fear like acid in my throat. I ran straight for the closest police station I could recall seeing on the map. We burst into the station, a grotesque parade of hysterical people, face paint, and fake blood. The police assumed I was drunk tourists playing a Halloween prank. It took 5 minutes of screaming, shaking, and showing them the blood-soaked scarf and Brian's gruesome cloth for a grizzled, tired man to finally pay attention. That man was Detective John. He looked exactly how you'd expect. World-weary, skeptical, but with a sharp, calculating intelligence behind his tired eyes. He pulled me into a sterile, quiet room. I recounted everything. The first killing that was dismissed as a stunt. The constant low-level terror, the fresh blood dripping from the killer's knife, the girl in the alley, and the fact that the sound of the festival was the perfect cover. I was the only one. Only I had the proof. The distinct image of the knife, the fresh blood, the pattern, the exact moment he stepped out of the shadows. Detective John listened, his skepticism slowly melting into a horrifying belief. He knew the festival was a nightmare for security, but the sheer number of incidents being dismissed as accidents was astronomical. My coherent, terrified account gave him the thread to pull. For the next day, the investigation consumed Mitt. My parents, David and Grace, arrived from the aunt's house, frantic. David was holding his gun. Detective John and his team worked fast. Based on my description of the costume and the specific location where I saw the killer last, they cornered and arrested a suspect late the following afternoon. He was a local man, obsessed with horror, who had been seen on multiple camera feeds with a skull mask and a long knife. They found the costume, they found the knife, cleaned but with trace evidence. The news broke. A Halloween psychopath was caught. The town breathed a sigh of collective, exhausted relief. The fear was gone, washed away by the bright, clean sunlight of a new day. Zoe and the kids were safe. Mom was hugging me constantly, and even David seemed to relax his military posture. I felt like a hero, or at least a survivor. Detective John, thanking me, assured me the nightmare was over. He said, "You saved lives, Moly. You got him off the street. I should have gone home. I should have packed and left that city of shadows." But I felt drawn to it, maybe a residual curiosity, or maybe the trauma binding me to the place. 2 days after the arrest, my family thought I was resting, but I went out for a quiet evening walk, determined to process the darkness that had unfolded. I wanted to see Mid again, this time without the noise and the costumes. I walked past the dark, quiet alley where I found the cut girl. I walked through the main street, now eerily silent, the music stages dismantled. That's when I heard the slow, deliberate footsteps behind me. I spun around. There, standing about 20 feet away, was a man. He wasn't wearing a mask. He was wearing normal clothes, but his eyes, they were flat, depthless, and they held the exact same predatory hunger I had seen in the skull mask. He put on the mask again and looked at me. He said, "The police think they have the killer, Moly. They think the fear is gone. But they caught the follower. The apprentice. The one who wanted to be like me." I taught him well, but he was always too sloppy. I got very scared and I screamed, but I was alone without any help. The real killer was still out there. The man they arrested, the one Detective John hailed as the end of the massacre, was just a sacrifice, a decoy. While taking a slow step toward me, he said, "You're the only one who knows the truth. You are the last loose end." I turned to run, but he was too fast. A crushing hand clamped over my mouth, the scent of antiseptic and something faintly metallic filling my senses. He dragged me into the darkness. He's making me look at the knife. I have to tell the truth, but I will be dead by the time people will know it. He is going to kill me now. Please, somebody help me. Oh my God. Please don't kill me. Please don't. No, please!